In this video, I want to talk about what it's like to sit in an ayahuasca ceremony, specifically with a Shipibo shaman. Now, if you don't know, there are many different ways that you can have or hold an ayahuasca ceremony. And in part, that's because there are many different cultures around the Amazon jungle that have learned to use ayahuasca. So as an example, I've sat with the Shipibo, which I'm going to talk about today. They are from Peru. I've also sat with a tribe called the Huniquin, which are from Brazil. And there are tribes from Colombia, Ecuador, and other places. And so there are different belief systems and different ways to utilize ayahuasca. The Shipibo were very unique and very powerful. And so I want to talk about what exactly that was like in case you're considering doing an ayahuasca ceremony for yourself and you're wondering who you should sit with and what style ceremony you should partake in. I want to explain the general belief system of the Shipibo culture. And obviously I'm not an authority on this, but this is from the limited experience and limited information that I was given from the retreat that I was at and from the shaman that I sat with. So generally speaking, the Shipibo culture is in the Amazon jungle in Peru, and they believe that everything in the universe gives off this pattern. You and I give off a pattern depending on our state of mind, our physical health. That pattern might look a little bit different. And everything from the water around them, the trees, the plants, everything gives off this pattern, which through their experience as shaman are not only able to see, particularly when they're drinking ayahuasca, but also they are able to read and sing as if what they're looking at is kind of a form of sheet music. And so the idea of an ayahuasca ceremony is that you, as the person that needs to be healed, the person that has some physical ailment, or the person that simply wants to grow, you are giving off this pattern. The shaman is able to read and sing that pattern. And through that singing, they are bringing in the energy or the healing that is coming from the actual entity that's doing the healing, which in this concept is ayahuasca, Mother Ayahuasca, if you will, the spirit of ayahuasca. That is the entity that's actually healing you. The shaman is simply the channel between you and that. The shaman will start off by singing, just generally opening the ceremony up once they start feeling the effects of the ayahuasca, because they are drinking with you. They will usually go around to every individual person that's in the room, read their vibration, their aura, whatever you want to call it, and then sing accordingly. That is very different than other cultures, which, for instance, I've sat in ceremonies where they're not going to visit every individual person. They're just going to sing or play music for the entire room. Now, let me explain what that feels like, because when you hear the singing in the room and the ayahuasca effects are starting to kick in for you, the singing alone is very powerful. It's very rhythmic. It helped me with a lot of the physical discomfort that I was feeling, because it helped me just kind of like keep a rhythm. And like, it reminded me to breathe. It reminded me to just like be very calm and centered. It just really helped with the physical discomfort. But that was when I would hear the singing just throughout the room, because maybe the shaman were visiting other people and I could hear their songs. But it hits differently when they are singing directly at you. I remember the first night I was in the toilet area for God knows how long, just sitting in there in pain, in discomfort. I wasn't really utilizing the toilet because I didn't have anything in my stomach to get out. We had fasted that night. It was just a sensation of discomfort and like I needed to use the toilet. I was in there for so long that somebody actually had to knock on the door and tell me that the shaman was going to be visiting my mattress next. And so if I wanted to receive that song specifically for me, I should try to wrap things up if I could and make my way back out there. And so all throughout that night leading up to this point, I could hear the singing in the distance. It was helping me through all of this physical discomfort that I was feeling. And then finally, I was able to kind of get myself together, stumble back out into the main room, and then sit down just in time for the shaman to finish singing to the person to my right, and then make their way in front of me. And when that happens, what they do, I guess it depends on each individual shaman, but this particular one that I'm explaining was this woman. She had very distinct features, very deep lines in her face, jet black hair, diminutive in stature. I was sitting there in front of her and she just felt like this immense presence. She came over to my mattress and she sat down, she crossed her legs, and she just kind of looked at me for a couple of minutes. She was smoking this cigarette filled with mapacho, a type of tobacco that is used for ceremonial purposes. There were no lights. There was only a single candle in the middle of the room, which she was sitting in front of. So I could only see this silhouette of this tiny woman I couldn't make out her face. I just saw the glow of her cigarette and the smoke that was coming out. And she sat there. I was in like a different mind space. My body was physically I had gone through the ringer in the restroom area. So I felt very weak, very cracked open, I suppose, ready to receive whatever she was going to sing. And then she put down her cigarette and she started her ikaro, her chanting, her singing. Under the influence of ayahuasca, I gotta say that this singing, it cuts differently than what you're hearing right now. I mean, I'm listening to every inflection of her voice. I'm listening to the very tiny details in the timbre and the rhythm and the tonality of what she's singing. And I obviously can't understand the words specifically, but there's a feeling that you're receiving as she's singing, almost as if you could understand, or maybe a part of you, your subconscious or your soul or something understands. These are the moments where I found myself going really, really deep into whatever topic I was dealing with for that night. So as an example, one night was about trust. One night was about judgment. Another night was about masculinity, forgiveness, all of these topics. These were the moments where I was really, really going deep into those. It felt like her words and her melody were just like cutting through into my core, forcing me to look at things and to observe things, and just really like, I don't know, doing work or something. In these moments, I felt myself purging a lot. Like I would be shaking. I would be crying oftentimes, just like tears coming down my face. I would be yawning a lot because we all had buckets in front of our mattresses. I would be with the bucket in my lap and just kind of spitting into it. It almost felt like this image of a snake charmer. If you think of this classical image that maybe you've seen in cartoons or something, where there's a snake charmer playing their flute and there's this cobra that's coming out of this pot that's like dancing to the music, almost like it's under a trance. That is pretty much how I felt. And at the same time that all this was happening, again, my mind is diving really deep into very personal, specific things that I'm dealing with. And so here's the kicker, right? They're singing this song probably, I don't know, maybe for about 20 minutes, maybe. You really have a terrible sense of time. The singing stops and there are just tears coming down my face. There's spit in my bucket. I just feel really weak. My shoulders are slumped. I just feel like I've been, I don't know, I've just gone through something intense. It gets quiet and then she pulls out the cigarette that she's smoking, takes a puff, and she blows that in your direction a few times. You get this smoke that just goes straight up into your nostrils. As weird as this may sound, it feels in that moment like a very strong pat on the back somehow. There's like a sense that everything that you've just been through, all of the tears that you've just cried, there's this sense of the smoke telling you, you're okay, you're good. Then she takes this liquid called agua de Florida. It's basically a flower-scented water, and it's used for ceremonial purposes. And as strange as this is going to sound, she takes a sip of this, and while you're sitting there in the darkness, you just feel like a mess. She spits that agua de Florida directly at you. Like if you're looking at her, you're going to get it straight on your forehead. It's going to go over into your hair. She does this like 3 times. I remember talking to a friend of mine, somebody that was at this retreat, and we were reminiscing on this experience. I was cracking up about how insane this sounds. And the reason why is because he was saying, this is like the only context in which somebody is going to spit in your face and it's going to feel like the greatest thing ever. And you're just going to say thank you. You're going to appreciate what they're doing. Because when they do this, when she blows this agua de Florida into you after she's just saying this ikaro, wow, it feels like all of the love and compassion that exists, that is from this spirit of ayahuasca, is exuding in your direction. It is embracing you. It is giving you this hug. It is giving you compassion. I don't know how else to describe it. It's an intense feeling to feel like you've just been broken down and then have this scent of flowers come up into your nose and this cool water brushing across your body. It sounds weird as hell, but it's the most magical thing ever that I bought a little bottle that I could take back with me so that whenever I smell it, I can be taken back to that moment. The last thing I'll share is that I talked about this female shaman. There was another, I think it was her husband actually, that was a shaman, and he visits every person as well. So you get both people in each night, and he would stand up as he's singing to you. So even though he's this like tiny Peruvian man, when you're sitting down and you're listening to him sing while you're on ayahuasca, he looks like he is 10 feet tall and he's singing this song to you. Again, same thing. You're going through it. You're being broken down. You're crying into your bucket, everything, right? And then the song finishes, it gets quiet. And then he takes his mapacho. I remember I would have this scent of mapacho go up my nose and just feel like it was this father telling you that you're okay, that you're safe, that you're protected. Very like masculine energy type of thing. And then he always had this thing where he would walk up to you, he would say a couple of things, and he would put his hands on your head like this. There's one hand on your forehead, one hand on the back of your head, and then he would put both hands then on the side of your head. And it felt like you had just been cracked open, you were broken down, and what he was doing was putting you back together. Man, was it powerful. It really left me with a sense of like, okay, I can walk away now and I'll be better for this experience. At some point, I think around 1 a.m., each shaman would have already visited every single person. They would then close the ceremony by simply laying down in their mattresses and going to sleep, because everybody's going to sleep in the maloca that night. And yeah, that was the experience with the Shipibo shaman that I sat with at this particular retreat. As I mentioned before, unlike some other cultures, which had their own beautiful ways of holding ayahuasca ceremonies, it was so freaking powerful to have the shaman sing directly at you and for you. And I really have a lot of reverence and respect for the Shipibo shaman. So I don't know if there's necessarily a wrong way to go about an ayahuasca ceremony, as long as the people are trustworthy, the retreat is trustworthy, and you're safe. But I can definitely speak very highly of the Shipibo shaman that I sat with. That's my experience with the Shipibo shaman. I hope you enjoyed that. Stay tuned for some videos that I'm gonna make about trip reports of what happened on each specific night that I sat, because I wanna share. I wanna share what I specifically went through, because I think maybe people can relate to it. And I just want to be able to vent it out a little bit. So thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next one.